Alrighty, hopefully this is coming through loud and clear. I'll just double check on my other computer. Smash that like button if this is all coming through loud and clear, guys. I already got 70 tuning in, that's awesome. Hey Jeff, Vlad, Mark. And we're going to talk about whether or not the Bears have control or whether or not we've wrestled them and the Bulls can start a bit of a run here as well. So, geez, there's already theories coming in the chat. I'll try and take all your comments and questions at the end, but I do want to run through this as best we can, as quick we can. And I don't want to do an overly long one tonight because we've got lots of awesome info to get through. And this is going to be a little bit of a birthday special edition. So for those that don't know, I got another year older yesterday. So guys, feel free to share this around and whatnot, and we'll get into it in just a sec. We'll give everyone a little chance to tune in, and we're going to run through the TA, the fundamentals, all the sentiment data that I look at, and we will get into the charts. I hope everyone is going to have some time off. I know it's crypto has been very, very testing of late. And guys, YouTube has been really funny lately. I know all the YouTubers always say make sure you subscribe and ring the bell button, but I know a lot of people don't get notifications even if they've got both of those. So I'm not sure what's happening there. Hopefully all you guys are getting all the content and on podcast as well for those that do want to enjoy it there. Thanks for the birthday wishes, guys. And as I said, let me know what you guys think. If we've bottomed, if we haven't, let me know why you think we're going lower. And if you think we have bottomed and it's all bull market from here, let me know as well. And I'm going to come back and work my way through your questions and comments at the end. So thanks to those that have tuned in. We've got over 100 now. Please hit that like button and share this around. And we're going to dive into what's been happening with these market cycles, and we're going to revisit the 4-year cycle of video I did nearly a year ago now, which is crazy to think. And on screen we've got Litecoin, that is Bitcoin, but we did cover Litecoin as well when Litecoin was around $30, and we spoke about how these 4-year cycles tend to lead the halving date by anywhere from a few months up to 6 months or more. And I think we got front run this time. That's really important to what we're going to dive into tonight. So as you know, Litecoin did get a big push up, and we had a big run up from $30 to around $150, and then it sold off a little bit. So it's actually fairly similar to the last cycle that we were looking at when we made this video a year ago. And everyone wants to know, what is Bitcoin going to do around the halving? So I'm going to touch on that today. I'm probably going to dedicate an entire video to that as we get closer as well though. Alrighty, so as I said just before, Bitcoin does go in cycles, and this is just a complete coincidence, but Bitcoin topped on my 30th birthday on the 18th of December, and that was when they bought out Bitcoin futures as well, so Wall Street could short Bitcoin and suppress the price or whatever you want to call it. And then a year later, we had the 18th of December was Bitcoin when it was just around this 3,200 level, and we took off again, so a year to the day, and now here we are, 18th of December. It looked like we did bottom, some sort of bottom. We're going to talk about if that was just a bottom of a couple of days, couple of weeks, or it could be the ultimate bottom today. So whales love to play games, and 18th of December, a week before Christmas. Does this get everyone talking around that festive time of year when people have time off work to get more people in with a positive attitude towards Bitcoin and crypto over that period when everyone is having some time off and with friends and family? So I want to talk about why it is so hard, because you hear these extremes in sentiment. We know that Bitcoin is driven by those cycles. You've seen the Wall Street cheat sheet probably 100 times by now, but on a day or a week like this, we've got people like Peter Schiff coming out and saying that Bitcoin's dead and it's going to zero, and the sentiment's been really low lately. And then you've got someone like Eric Voorhees who reminds you that, well, it's up 100% this year. It's one of the best performing assets this year. And at the same time, we've got stories about how Bitcoin's the best performing asset of the decade. And it's, banks and the guys that used to rip on Bitcoin are out saying that. And so it's all a matter of perspective. And that's why people get completely lost in that noise and that racket. One of the books on the shelf behind me is The Signal and the Noise by Nate Silver. And he talks about what to pay attention to and what you need to ignore. And it's very much the case with crypto as well. So Willy Woo is another one that spoke really positively a couple of weeks ago. He thought that Bitcoin had bottomed, or if we get another low, it's probably going to be a week in the grand scheme of things. So obviously we did go $1,000 lower from when he tweeted that, but certainly someone that I respect. And these days you've got so much great data to look at what's going on and make up your own mind whether or not it's bottomed. So for me, you guys know my approach has always been fundamentals. I've got about a dozen things I look at. Technical analysis, there's heaps of different styles and good traders on Twitter you can follow and YouTube to get a feel for what different traders are thinking. And sentiment is the one that has really probably exploded in terms of the data that you can get these days. So I used to have about a dozen things I'd look at to try and get a feel for retail FOMO or capitulation. But I'm going to run you through a few of the free sites now where you can get awesome information. And for anyone that wants this cheat sheet, it is available for our members as well. So when we get that FOMO and the euphoria, it feels really awkward to say that Bitcoin might have topped. And it's obviously the opposite at the bottom. It's really awkward to be talking about bullish trades, and people just aren't interested. So this was the week that Bitcoin topped. I think Bitcoin hit about 16 or 18,000 this day and then touched 20 a couple of days later. And I said that when everyone's bragging about making life-changing amounts of money and, getting greedy, this is when you should be taking some profits. And people laughing, not many comments. At the time, we had over 1,000 members. We've maintained most of those to this day, but people just didn't want to hear that. This wasn't a very popular post at the time compared to other posts about trades and saying that it would keep going up. Those type of posts were getting hundreds of likes at the time. So it wasn't popular to tell people to take profits. Now, likewise, at the start of the year, we spoke about this Adam and Eve pattern when Bitcoin was trading around 3,400 and about how this double bottom could form, and just not really popular. Everyone at that stage thought that Bitcoin was going to 1,000 and that the bubble had popped, and people were really chatting about the hyperwave theory and how bubbles go through that full complete cycle and they go back to where they started. And even when Bitcoin started to take off, it wasn't comfortable and people weren't convinced for 5K. Next thing you know, it's through 6 and off to the races. So that's the psychology of everyone being on the one side of the boat, and it just does not feel comfortable being the odd one out. And gradually people come over to that side, and gradually all that gets priced in as people act on those changes of emotion. So when people say to me, does TA work or FA, fundamental analysis, or sentiment analysis that I do, they all work. People act on different things. So when a trader tells you it's only the charts and someone else tells you, well, it's only research, that's what they're acting on individually. So it's definitely a mix of things. Now, in the middle of the year, we had this big run up, this parabola, and it just did not feel natural at all. Those of you will remember at the time, I think I posted that these parabolas don't end well. And when you look at it, it was probably something that I had learned from back here. When you see these charts that just go completely vertical like that, it just can't last. So again, we've got to learn from previous market cycles. And this was a mini cycle. And, in hindsight, it's great now to watch it unwind to the degree that it has. But this was almost like a mini cycle within a cycle of that big Wall Street cheat sheet. So yesterday and regularly I do these tweets in different Facebook groups and on Twitter and trying to get a feel for traders and their sentiment. So of those that did vote in this poll, you can see that over about 75% and less than a quarter of people that voted were bullish. So it was very, very lopsided, and that was all the traders that obviously have a bigger following. So that impacts the market. And it was even more so in our group. So as you see there, 84 people said the traders that they follow on all different platforms, paid groups, free groups, they're bearish at the moment compared to 3. So that's how extreme it got, and that was 2 or 3 days ago. So that was just another thing, a flag for me when I build up this big arsenal of all my opinions to become a contrarian. Now, Socialblade is a fantastic website you can look at. They recently took away a bit of the data you used to get for free, but it's still a good resource. And what you can actually see is who buys fake subs and who gets those subs removed and videos taken down, and it all shows up pretty clearly. So if you've been doing nothing wrong, there's nothing to worry about. But if you've got YouTubers you think are fake, you can head over there and see their subscriber growth and whatnot. Now, this is the only week in Nuggets News history where we lost subscribers, and that was that week when Bitcoin bottomed from the 10th to the 17th of December. And you used to be able to break this data down to the day, and it was the very day, the 17th and 18th of December, when Bitcoin capitulated from around 4,000 down to that 3,000 mark. That was the only day in YouTube history we've lost subscribers. So that was retail capitulating and throwing in the towel, saying, stuff that, I've waited so long, I bought the highs, this thing's going to 1,000, it's going to 0, throwing in the towel. Now, another thing I like to look at is the views and stats on videos like this one. When newbies are searching how to buy Bitcoin in Australia, we can look at the metrics and the views on that. We can see what people are coming to our website and clicking on how to learn about Bitcoin. What is Bitcoin? This is all free as well. We've seen in the news lately things about Bitcoin searches. In particular, let's just get rid of Bitcoin. Ethereum has really died in terms of sentiment lately as well, dropping to these lows that haven't been seen since, I think, back in 2017, before that bull market. So sentiment was pretty bad. Now, here's a few of the newer websites, free to use. These guys do have premium services, which I subscribe to, and they're brilliant. Now, some of them are very, very expensive, but I feel it's worth it, obviously, having a crypto business. But you can go to the TIE, go to their dashboard and look at all this stuff that's free and get a feel for what coins are being spoken about. They pull lots of data from Twitter, from all social platforms. I'm actually got an interview with them coming out soon to talk about how that they get all that data. This is a screenshot from their premium section. Now, you guys can't quite see it just behind me, but basically we had the NVT ratio and the NVT tweet ratio. So these talk about volumes that are taking place compared to price, and then they also compare that to the amount of tweets that are happening for a given coin. And basically we had a capitulation, Bitcoin in blue hitting fresh lows that not seen since back in July, and behind me Ethereum is right down at these levels. Again, a big capitulation. So sentiment from all these metrics we look at was getting bad and hitting a capitulation. Now, sentiment, another one that I think is brilliant. I'm subscribed to their premium stuff. This is free as well, but again, their premium stuff is the next level up for those of you that are serious. So what are we looking at here? We've got social volume, which is very similar to some of the other stuff we've already looked at in terms of that trending down ever since we peaked and hit 14,000 there. So we'll remove that one. We've got token age consumed and mean dollar invested age. So this is talking about those days destroyed. When someone's held a Bitcoin for a long time and then they move it or sell it, they're getting rid of a lot of, you can think of that as built up energy. They're a hodler and then they're getting rid of that. So we didn't see a lot of that recently at all. And you can see the mean dollar invested age is rising. So people are comfortable. And the top 100 Bitcoin addresses, whales weren't selling. So I know there's a lot of bad stuff happening lately, but if you drill down on the data and looked away from the social sentiment, things weren't that bad. Bitcoin hadn't had a critical bug. Nothing like that had really changed. So it was all just price action on the charts doing its thing. Again, when Bitcoin had a big run up, people started to sell and destroy those days invested. And then it started to build back up again after that point back there in July. So another website here you can check out. This is scalpxindex.com, bit of a mouthful there, but they've got that social index you can look at as well. Open interest, and this is where we start to talk about the TA. So volume started to get very, very thin on the leverage platforms at the same time that we were seeing extremes in the number of leverage positions. So this is a 4-hour chart at the moment, and you can see how thinly traded, there's only 700 million in terms of open interest. Now, previously, if we take this back to a daily chart, you can see that we used to have, $1 billion regularly traded. So as more and more people are getting more and more leveraged, there's actually less orders on the books. And that's when you can get these big liquidations and moves in either direction. So a good place to keep an eye on what's happening is blockchain whispers. Now, I tend to ignore Bitfinex data because in the start of the year, we had 1 or 2 days where they had these huge numbers, and then it just turned on a dime because people can claim their position on Bitfinex, and basically that gets sorted out with funds they have in their account with the person they borrowed the coins off. So it doesn't go through the order book, put it that way. It doesn't affect the actual price on the exchange. And that's why I think that this is either games or people that, it's not a true indication. So recently we saw shorts very high up until today. Shorts are still fairly high on Binance, but this was up around 75%. So the vast majority of people had big leveraged shorts on. Another one here, BitMEX resources. This is good because you can see what retail traders are doing in the troll box positions versus what the leaderboard are doing, all the big whales. And at the moment, the big whales are long as well. The final one to mention is the funding rate. So how much does it cost to put on a margin position? Now, when it's negative, it means it's extremely expensive to short the market, to bet that it's going to go down. And you can see the amount here, 0.02. And yesterday that spiked to 0.1. So that's a daily funding rate. That's extremely expensive. If you want to pay that much on a big margin position when you've got your 100,000 or your $1 million position and you're having to pay 0.1% every day just to keep that open, that's because there's not enough demand for coins. Everyone wants coins because everyone wants to pile in short. But obviously, again, another sign that everyone's on the same side of the boat. So you can keep an eye on this BitMEX funding rate on their website. There were a few tools on TradingView that I think have been taken down or made premium as well. Now, on different exchanges, they'll actually show you that predicted funding rate as well. At the moment, I'm doing most of my stuff on FTX. So it's always going to be there on the good exchanges to let you know what's going on. Now, if you want more information about that, those guys in our group, Tim Ricky has done some brilliant write-ups on this the past couple of days and really outlined why this is so important and how to use it. And I know he put on a brilliant trade and nearly picked the bottom, so well done, Tim. Now, the backdrop to all this has been the price action where we had that mini parabolic rise to 14K. We needed to unwind. We knew that was kind of coming. It was going to be normal, but we didn't think it was going to come to this extent. And Plus Token and a lot of other scams have now accumulated very large amounts of Bitcoin. Significant percentages, 3, 4, 5%, maybe more of all the Bitcoin and Ethereum that's out there being traded as well. Remember, a lot of people hodl and it's not on exchanges. So when there's this amount of crypto that's trying to get on exchanges, it's going to affect the price in a big way. So thanks to Chainalysis and other of these tracking businesses, we can see what's been happening, and they've been trying to move this to Huobi and trying to wash it to break the blockchain trace. But there's no doubt when you see these big spikes about how much they've been cashing out and then the big downside pressure, I just don't think it's a coincidence that we've had such a big extensive drop from where we maybe otherwise would have gone. Now, finally, just breaking today, we did get news that Plus Token have moved $100 million of ETH. So let's see, again, if that's going to cause a bit of a downward price in ETH. I hope we can track this and stop it. I just hate seeing these scammers get away with everything they do. All right, so let's dive in and get into the technical analysis. This is that longer term trend line I had at the start, and we're on a log scale going all the way back to where this bull market started back in 2015 after that crypto winter. The other thing I've got on the chart here is volume profile, and we can see that most of you are very aware that where Bitcoin spent most of its time in 2018 was around this 6K, and this was going to be a very, very important support level. And it's come down, it's kind of swept that twice, and I'll remove that now, but volume profile, fantastic tool to use. Now let's just bring on a few of my other indicators. I'll zoom in there and I'll get rid of that blue. We were looking for another Adam and Eve the other day. So that's one of the bullish scenarios. I'm waiting to see if that can play out. So let's just put on a few of my other favorites. Bollinger Bands are an old favorite that I used to use a lot more, and I found that they stopped working as well at stages, but this is just such an easy visual for beginners to put on their charts, and when we get to extremes, it tends to bounce back. So on the weekly chart, when we hit 14,000, we're outside the weekly Bollinger Band. It tends to revert to the mean. Recently, we had a dip below, and we had a pretty big bounce. Last week, a week before, I spoke about that as well, expecting a bounce. We got that. On the weekly, we didn't quite get outside the Bollinger Bands again this time, but we got a pretty extreme move on the daily Bollinger Bands outside there and a big bounce back in. So other things that I was looking at were this divergence. I've done videos about this when we get the RSI not making a new low as price heads down. So you can see that price is trending down and makes a new low. At the same time, we had that RSI getting a little bit stronger and just creeping upwards there. So this works on all time frames. Definitely something that I think you should pay attention to. And this is one of the ones that's most widely watched by a lot of the traders, that bullish divergence. Other than that, I probably just want to go into our 4-hour, and our momentum indicator we've been playing around with did have a bit of a turn there, but again, that's something that we're still doing a bit of work on as well. So when you put together all these different indicators, we were definitely making the case that socially, sentiment-wise, there was a fair bit of fear and capitulation. People were piling in to trade short at a time when you could have shorted anywhere from 14,000 down to here and made a fair bit of money. But as always, people really decide to get greedy and pile in, maybe because they are fearful that we're going to break that really important 6,000 range. So let's get rid of our Bollinger Bands and let's have a look at a few of our other moving averages. On a really high time frame, you'll find that on the monthly chart, we've actually just pulled back into those moving averages in a fairly regular fashion. So I know on BitMEX that volume's been decreasing after the big move up where volume was increasing. So that's a very, that is a bull flag. It's probably extended a little bit longer than we would have liked, but that's all still pretty bullish as long as we hold these levels here and that log trend line. Now let's go to the really long-term stuff. And let's talk a little bit about the halving that's coming up. So this is a long-term chart of Bitcoin from when it started back in 2009. And we see the first halving. People weren't really aware of it then, and then we get the big run up afterwards. And then we have these 4-year cycles that I believe have really changed a little bit this year. So we bottomed about, call it nearly a year before that halving. Bit of excitement into it. And I know in 2016, there were a lot of people excited about the halving. It wasn't like no one knew about it. And then we just got that steady increase as Bitcoin really took hold in 2017. Now, this time around, I think that this got front run in a big, big way. And this doesn't really fit with the timing that we were looking for at the start of the year. And I think that we maybe, really got manipulated by those whales. Now, this is a great tool you can use to copy the candlesticks. Where are we? Bars pattern. And if you have a look from the previous huge run here, all the way through crypto winter to when the next bull run started, let's copy those bars and bring them over here from this time around. And this is what I would have been maybe more expecting, particularly to fit with our time cycles. We had almost that pattern lining up perfectly, but then out of the blue, we had that big ramp up. And once we got through that 6,000, and we got the liquidations, the margin trading, 100x this time around, people thinking 6K will hold, 10K will hold, piling into shorts. Before you know it, we've blown up to 14,000. So that's where I think that this just doesn't fit with previous cycles and it's been front run a little bit. And where we actually are right now, it's pretty healthy. This is a pretty fair price before we start to take off. And I definitely think that the next halving is going to be the first halving where it's really the entire public awareness drives the cycle. Because I know people are saying it's already priced in. I just don't think that's the case. All those metrics I spoke about before, my friends, retail, they're not really aware of this at all. And if we start another bull market, I definitely think we could have a little pump and then a pullback before the halving. I don't think we're just going to go straight up and keep going up after the halving. I don't think it's going to be that easy. But I definitely think that these whales love to play games. I think they're probably going to push around Litecoin a little bit again as the bit of the test dummy for people. If Litecoin takes off, that does get people really excited. So tying all that together, let's just go back to BLX, the long-term Bitcoin index. Tying all that together, I really do think that Bitcoin got overvalued. It's pulled back to fair value. Whatever happens now, whether it's a week up or down $1,000, I'm not too fussed. If we go into the short-term charts, we can see that these $1,000 daily candles, they're not uncommon, and we've had it before. We saw that big pump recently, only to be sold off really hard. And if you have a look at what happened, if we take out this second fake pump, again, let's get our copy tool out. Where have it? I've lost it again. If we take our copy tool out here and have a look at this pattern, it's very similar to what happened during the capitulation, where we have that fall and then that bounce and then a double bottom. Now this played out over a slightly longer time frame, but as you guys there, you can start to get that picture of how this was a pretty similar pattern to what's kind of playing out now if we hadn't have had that fake pump. So if you take out that fake pump, it starts to look very similar in terms of what could have happened, that crypto winter that lasted for 2 years in 2014, 2015. That's the sort of thing that I think would have been maybe more normal and more healthy for the market. But either way, I think we're at fairly fair value now. That long-term log chart becomes very important in the short term. If we want to have a look at the very short-term charts, if we zoom in, so far, not a lot of selling volume. But I think the next few days is going to tell us a lot, whether or not this was another fake pump. Because at the moment, what I would finish off on by saying is that we definitely don't have retail flocking in any significant way like we have done in the past during genuine real bull markets. So keep an eye on this, your fib levels, your moving averages, your Bollinger Bands, whatever you want to use to get a feel for what that market is doing. But just remember that we don't have noobs piling in at the moment and throwing in that money. There's been a lot of fear. There's still a bit of uncertainty around regulation, which I'll do more videos on. We definitely have had those Ponzi schemes selling. We don't know if that's done yet, if it can still continue. But in the grand scheme of things, zooming out, I think 7,000 represents a very reasonable price point that a lot of people would have been begging for when it was 14 or when it was $20,000. And we can even drift a bit lower into that 5,000, that 6,000 again, and that doesn't break the that long-term cycle and how bullish I am on crypto long-term, because negative interest rates aren't going away. Central banks aren't going to stop printing money. Government debt is not fixed, and look at the political and civil unrest we're seeing globally. Bitcoin blockchain does represent that chance to take the power back from those people. So look at this chart of millennials and the wealth. We've got about 1 or 2, maybe 3% of global wealth, and you look at these the decline in the silent generation and the amount of their wealth, and baby boomers as well. They're unwinding their share of national wealth as they spend less into retirement and downgrade their assets. So millennials, as soon as we start going up this chart, we know millennials want to invest in Bitcoin, crypto, tech. They're open-minded to all that. So to me, it's almost certain that Bitcoin is going to continue to gain traction and use. And I do believe that over the medium to long term, that translates to higher prices and higher market caps as more people use it. So guys, for more info on anything we do, head over to nuggetsnews.com.au. Thank you all for joining me tonight. I did run about half an hour and I don't want to go any longer tonight, but I will talk to you guys again soon. Cheers.